How do you save your marriage when your wife has already checked out? When she's already completely cold, made up her mind, and seems completely done with the marriage? I'm going to answer that. We're going to answer that actually very thoroughly, as you can probably see in this video. But the very first thing that I want you to hear right up front is this. Yes, you can still save your marriage. Now, why start here? Why is this something? It might sound obvious, but we actually do need to start here. First off, because that's what we do here at Husband Help Haven. We are all about helping you be the best husband you can be, no matter what your marriage is like right now. But also because almost everything that you see online about walkaway wife syndrome, if you've looked that up, is made to convince you that you can't save your marriage. Okay. The attorneys you might read, if you Google walkaway wife syndrome, you're probably going to find some attorneys with their websites, with their blogs, and you're going to find different articles telling you that by the time you see this syndrome, that you may as well just go ahead and hire them because it's already done with. The ladies out there who are making some content are probably applauding your wife, making sure that the whole world knows how entitled she is to do what she's doing in the marriage. There might be some other guys out there that you're seeing talking about this, but they probably are coming at this entitling you to anger, outrage, and quickly moving on because who needs her anyways? I believe that there is a better path, and that's what we're going to explore in this video. Because with the attorneys, we do want acceptance, so we want some of that. We also want empathy for your wife. We want to understand how she got here. Yeah, and we're going to do that today. We also want the independence. We need you to have some, probably more independence than you currently do in your marriage, but that's not the end of the story. We also want love, we want commitment, and we want grit. We want to be able to just push through when life gets tough, including in your marriage. If these aren't core to husbandhood, what is? Again, this is like your marriage vow, right? For better or for worse. Now, I know that your wife might not be honoring that right now. That's not license for you to do the same. Now, very quickly, I want to just help you get straight into it. What is it that I think the very first thing that we can establish that's going to help you respond to what you're seeing from your wife more accurately and with better connection to her and better assurance for yourself is this. See, everybody gets this wrong when they're talking about walkaway wives. Walkaway wife syndrome is the way that she's leaving, not the why. Okay. What do I mean by that? In other words, the walkaway wife syndrome, all the things that get sort of dropped into that bucket, and again, we're going to talk more about what exactly those things are. These things are a method of leaving a relationship, not a motivation. Now, again, that might be opposite of what you hear or read online, but I'm going to demonstrate why I think that this is true. And what I really want you to take away from this, why this is important to establish right up front, is that walkaway wife syndrome doesn't actually say anything about your marriage. It's actually only evidence about where your wife is at. It doesn't say anything about you. Doesn't say anything about your marriage, at least not on its face. And that's why after 10 plus years of coaching guys through separation, I really, if I'm being honest, I don't ever actually use this term, walkaway wife syndrome. So I know it's like a hot topic online. There's, again, I know that there's lots of attorneys and lots of other content creators who talk about this term. I never use it. And you're going to see why here in a second. I think by the end of this video, you'll understand exactly why. Now, let's just make sure that we are on the same page. What exactly is it that we're talking about with this walkaway wife experience? Here's the way that this goes. Oftentimes, it will seem like one day, kind of almost out of the blue. Sometimes it is this sort of a steady buildup of distance, but a lot of times it's out of the blue. It feels like a switch flipped. Your wife suddenly goes cold. Now, for many men, this actually happens before the separation starts. It's usually a couple weeks. Sometimes it's up to a couple months. Now, this is going to contrast against what you will hear about walkaway wives, how they've made up their mind for years on end, and that's why you're just playing catch up. Well, honestly, from everything that I've seen, there is a cold spell, but it usually is a cold spell. It's temporary in leading up to the separation. And here's how it usually goes. It doesn't always go exactly this way, but I've seen this exact pattern happen many times, which is initially the guy, the husband, notices that his wife is withdrawn in the relationship, more so than usual. again, they're usually, there may have been some times in the past where she's kind of pulled away. That's just sort of her MO a little bit. But it feels like this time's a little different. You notice her really pull away. Initially, you chalk it up to normal life rhythm. She must just need some space. So you give her some space for a week, and then it turns into 2 weeks, and then maybe it turns into a month. And then finally, you ask her, hey, is everything okay? And that's when she tells you, no, actually, everything's not okay. We need to talk. And then the D bomb drops. Now, sometimes there's this catalyzing event where it is you just come to her. Sometimes it is that she uh, comes back from a girls' trip, or you come back from some sort of business trip, or she goes out to have lunch with somebody and she comes back. Sometimes there is this sort of like moment where she's like sort of steels herself to do this. But again, a lot of times it's this short window of distance, and then it all comes out. Okay, this is where, and then after that happens, okay, and in that moment, she might tell you something like, "I've been trying for years to make this marriage work." She might say something like, "I've been planning this for years," which ironically, sometimes the same wife says both of those things, but try to make sense of that. "I've been trying to save the marriage and planning my exit for years." How does that make sense? Well, it doesn't. We'll get more about that, right? um, but she might say things like, "My feelings just aren't there." She might say things like, "It's too little, too late." Uh, and what you're going to notice about all of these reasons is that they're unfalsifiable. They're reasons that you can't actually touch or interact with because they're totally internal to her. You may not have realized that she had been trying for years. And so now when you say, well, I'd like to try with you, I'm sorry, it's too late. Internally, though you didn't know it or interact with it in any way, she was trying for years. My feelings just aren't there. Again, this is a statement that is resistant to argument. You can't argue against her feelings. They just aren't there. So it's an unfalsifiable reason. Many, many times that's what you're going to get in the conversation when she tells you that she wants out of the relationship. Now, many times, if you're like most guys, you're going to respond to this as kind of bewildered. You'll say, where did this come from? I had no idea things were this bad. Again, a lot of times you can look back and there may have been low points. There were real valleys in your relationship, in your marriage, but they never lasted. They would be temporary. It was a few months, rough few months, maybe a rough year here or there, depending on how long you've been married. But it never became permanent. And so, you might look back, or maybe you look back and you say, you know what, the past couple of years have been tough. I didn't feel this same distance from her, but like, hey, I've had clients who they lost a pregnancy, or he lost his job a couple years ago, or they got into financial trouble some other way, and life has just been really tough for a bit. Um, One way or another, this is his response. I had no idea things were this bad. He might say, isn't there anything that we can do? Again, he's trying to feel out. Is there something to latch onto? Surely it's not just like done all of a sudden. But her response back is, well, yes. He might say, what about the kids? What about the money? What about the house? None of these reasons matter to her because she has unfalsifiable reasons for leaving. And so when you respond in this way, she's going to act like, you know what? I hear that you want marriage counseling, but I'm just telling you it's going to be pointless. We can talk about this if you want, but conversation will be futile. I'm not going to change my mind. She's going to treat divorce like a given, even though you're just learning about it. You're playing catch up. She's going to kind of have that posture, and it's going to feel that way to you. And she might even take on this condescending maternal dynamic. I've had many clients run into this, where it's almost like she's like, "Oh, there. You'll understand why I'm getting the divorce someday. You'll come around someday." And she's just so certain that she knows best and that you're just playing catch up. And again, when your world is spinning, again, you had no idea things were really this bad. In some ways, you really are playing catch up. And so this is a very common dynamic. Now, here's what I want you to notice. Okay. Here's what I want you to notice is that there are some things that change from man to man. What are those things? The actual reason that she's leaving. This is what changes. Now, here at Husband Help Haven, I generally talk about 3 motives for separation. I think that these are the 3 best buckets that make the most sense of why a wife chooses to leave a marriage. Those reasons are legitimate loss of love, infidelity, and an identity crisis. Let me just put a little bit of meat on the bones of those reasons. Legitimate loss of love is when there's a problem inside the marriage that has caused her so much pain that she's made a well reasoned decision to leave the marriage. There's something in the marriage she's getting away from. She maybe has, maybe hasn't. Again, this isn't saying anything about about sort of the the validity of her efforts to deal with that inside the marriage. It's just saying that's how she got here. Sometimes the but for reason, in other words, if you took this thing out of the picture, the divorce wouldn't happen, the separation wouldn't happen, is infidelity. Another relationship has poisoned the well. Now, here's what I want you to notice. Even when the real reason your wife is leaving is infidelity, she's going to still tell you it's loss of love. Same thing with an identity crisis. An identity crisis, the difference between this and loss of love is that there's something outside of the marriage that she wants. She is reforming her identity in such a way that who she sees herself being in the next chapter of her life is incompatible with married life in some way. So these are the three reasons that a wife chooses, that motivate a wife out of a marriage relationship. But here's what I want you to notice. And here's what I can tell you in my experience seeing these separations play out. I've seen all three of these motives show up as walkaway wife syndrome. And so here we come back to the point. This is how you know that the walkaway wife behaviors are actually mechanisms. It is a mechanism of leaving the relationship. It is not a motivation for leaving the relationship. Why does this matter? Well, because what we're going to start to realize is that this does start to impact and make sense of why certain things aren't working when you try to engage with her. It's also going to make sense of what you've observed so far, and it's going to inform a little bit of how you can plan on repairing the relationship or what your best efforts towards that end ought to look like. So let's talk through this because the argument that I will make here, and you've probably been sitting here staring at this, knowing that it's coming, and that is that walkaway wife is an avoidant mechanism, an avoidant method for leaving the relationship. And I think that as we talk through this, it is going to floor you just how much spillover, carryover there is between these two concepts. Now, let's just first back up 1 second. What is avoidance? What do I mean when I say that? Well, this is coming from the world of attachment theory. And in attachment theory, avoidance describes somebody who deals with their insecurities, with any hard emotions that sort of come into their system. The way that they deal with that, especially when they're not doing well, is through suppression paired with rationalization. In other words, they don't feel the feelings when they come in, and then they have good reasons for not feeling them. They don't share the feelings when they come in, and they have good reasons for not sharing them. Right? Suppression, rationalization. This is the stereotypical, just bottle it up, suck it up, buttercup, get along, go along to get along. That sort of an attitude is so much of the time what you're going to see in these people. Now, what this means is that these people in this, and if this is your wife, you might have noticed that she internalizes her feelings and that she has very strong internal narratives for why she's doing what she's doing. Again, this is a characteristic of avoidant people. And oftentimes what you're going to find when you're in a relationship with a person like this is that you don't hear about any problems really ever. Like you can probably look back across the relationship. You might feel that your wife is fairly low conflict overall. Now, a lot of times what's going to happen is these individuals are not overly skilled at recognizing their feelings, certainly not naming their feelings, and even less so expressing their feelings. Again, you can sort of think of if the MO is suppression when an insecurity comes into the system, what's the opposite of suppression? Expression. So that's the thing that's not happening for these people. Now, both men and women can fall into this avoidant, insecure attachment style. But this is the point. When we look over at the themes in the walkaway wife syndrome, let's just look at these through the lens of avoidance. That cold temperature that she has towards you, the way that she just keeps you at arm's length, she tells you that this is proof of how bad the marriage has been, but it may actually be just an intense version of her normal pattern when stuff is hard. Does she always shut down when stuff is hard? Okay, then are we just seeing a more extreme version of that? Now, when she has these, my mind is already made up statements, That may be true. She may experience that as being true, but it also may serve the dual purpose of shutting down hard or vulnerable conversations. When she tells you that she won't talk about her feelings, and when it feels like you never hear about her feelings until they're like so big that you can't even interact with them anymore, well, the reason that she got here in the first place is because she's so good at masking her feelings. And this is something I was starting to just touch on a little bit earlier, which is that this is a tendency for avoidant people. You don't hear about the problems until they're so big that the dam is bursting. You suppress, you suppress, you suppress, you bottle it up, you bottle it up, you bottle it up until the bottle's so big it explodes. And that's when you hear about it. That's when they can't help but express themselves, and usually with a lot, just layer upon layer upon layer of narrative papered over the top of their true feelings. Now, when she gives you that relationship long list of reasons that she's leaving, this may be that some of these reasons may be true. They might have kernels of truth to them. They may describe real experiences, but the reason that they're coming up for her now and why they hold so much power over her now is because they serve the purpose of post hoc justification. In other words, her negative feelings may have been real, but way more occasional and way more confined than she's making it seem like right now. In other words, you may not be crazy thinking like, it didn't seem like you were this unhappy. Like, I can think back a year ago, you gave me a really nice anniversary card. And I'm quite sure that when we went on that vacation last year and had like made great memories with our kids, I'm pretty sure that those smiles that I saw on your face were real. And I'm here to tell you, yes, they were. And even though she's telling you now that she may have been faking it or whatever else she's saying about that time, the reality is it's revisionist history. Okay. Now, again, the way that she can be so warm to everyone else except for you, maybe this is actually just extreme compartmentalization that you're experiencing the collateral damage of. The way that her insistence of all conversations be restricted to certain areas or certain channels. Maybe it's we can only talk about kid stuff and logistics. Or some wives even take it one step further. They say we can only talk through attorneys or the court appointed app. Or I've even had some wives completely block their husband's number. What is this doing? Well, it might be, I'm sure she has reasons, but I think that many times this sort of posture also serves the purpose of maintaining felt control for her. She has this strong internal justification for why she ought to keep you at such a strong arm's length. And yet she doesn't see how that's in line with her pattern of staying away from hard conversations. So again, this is just a few examples, and you can probably, as you start to sort of think through what you've experienced from your wife, and you sort of ask yourself, is this avoidant behavior? You might start to say, and as you start going and researching that more for yourself, you might start to say yes. Now, if you're living this, again, what I want you to know is that you're not imagining things. You're not being dramatic. Again, it's probably not helped because you might tend a little bit more towards the anxious side. I mean, again, you can sort of think of the avoidant person when they are not doing well, they skew way too hard towards independence. The anxious person, when he's not doing well or when she's not doing well, skews way too hard towards codependence. So a lot of times these two types of people match up with each other because they complement each other when life is going well, but they really feel like oil and water when life gets hard. And so this may be part of why everything that you do seems to be hardening her heart even further, because if you're trying to lean in and sort of get your wife to connect with you and she's in just like hypersensitive mode about her independence, then when you lean in, it just makes her lean back even harder. Now, even if you disagree with all of this, even maybe you're a skeptic, maybe you say, you know what, Stephen, you're full of it. You're not a psychologist, and I'm not. That's true. You're not a psychologist. You're not a counselor. Where do you get off saying any of this stuff about, diagnosing a wife as avoidant when you've never even met her? Well, here's what I can tell you without ever having met your wife or you. I can tell you that when a wife does these things, that these things are happening for her, whatever you want to call it. The cold certainly does end the conversation. It lets her leave without doing the harder work or having the harder conversations. It enables her to view herself as justified as she does that. And it helps her stay in a state of emotional apathy about your feelings. So she doesn't have to take on the grief or the sadness or the shame that could come from seeing you struggle through this separation. Because She's keeping you at arm's length. So call that whatever you want. You don't have to call it avoidant if you don't want to. But I just don't think that it's debatable that this way of leaving the relationship does do those things for her. Even if your wife has legitimate reasons for leaving the marriage, even if she never changes her mind, even if she never sees it this way herself, she never takes ownership of this, she may never see that she's doing anything wrong. She may even have some legitimate reasons to be avoidant. Maybe she had a rough childhood where she like had to be the independent one like way too early in life. She had to be the parent when she was 12. That's not good. Those wives grow up extremely avoidant. Maybe she's had to learn some of these tendencies in the marriage because you have some of your own stuff that has trained her that conversation with you, that vulnerable conversations are punishing. If so, okay, well, let's certainly be very gracious towards her about that. But all the same, we can still say that these are all avoidant patterns. Okay. Now, how does this actually help you save your marriage? Well, I hope it does two things for you. I hope it shows you first off that your cold wife is not a lost cause. Her current posture is not proof that fighting for your marriage is futile. Instead, it's proof that your wife is currently deeply entrenched in avoidant thoughts and feelings. Now, is that a reason to divorce? Your wife struggling against these avoidant thoughts and feelings, being very, very deeply entrenched in this unfortunate, insecure way of going through life and going through her relationships. Is that a reason to divorce? Is that proof that her opinions are right or permanent? No on all three counts. No, no, and no. And this is what I want you to hear. No matter how avoidant she seems, no matter how entrenched she seems, the reality is that feelings change. And her feelings today may not be her feelings tomorrow. They may be. Avoidant people are slow emotional movers. So her feelings will probably move at a snail's pace, but move they will. And what I can tell you for sure is that the way that she looks back on this time and the way that she feels about you in the present when that time comes in like 2 years' time or 1 year time or even 6 months' time is going to be very different than how it is today. That part is true. So let's do what we can to apply some directionality to how her future feelings materialize. And here's the other thing that I want you to know. So not only can feelings change, even though feelings, especially negative feelings, when you're experiencing them, they feel so permanent, but they're not. They're reactive, they're responsive. Your feelings are a response to the things that are happening to you and the way that you perceive those things as they happen. But the other thing that I want you to take away from this is that the caricatures that you often hear about a walkaway wife from all parties, most of them are not true. She is more than a syndrome. She's less than a villain. And she's very far from a sociopath. If you've watched, I have a short on the channel talking about like 3 things that your walkaway wife is not. And 2 of those things are she's not a chess master. She hasn't been like planning out these separation moves until just the right time to strike and checkmate and I got you. Like, no, that's not how it works. That's not how she did this. She's also not a sociopath. She isn't just gaming you. She isn't using you. That's not what she's doing. At least that's not been how she's been in the relationship. I'm telling you that your marriage was real. The things you experienced in it were real. The relationship that you forged with her is real. And no matter what you're hearing from her today, trust what you've experienced as real, that it really was real. And so what I hope all of this does is bring you to a place of compassion where you can see that, yes, this is a bad way to leave a relationship. We can agree with that. And yet we can also say she is hurting, she is insecure, and she's trying to keep control of her life at a time when life feels like there's no ground beneath her feet. Okay, well, gosh, that's going to be a much easier place to connect with her from than when you're feeling like, oh, I've been taken advantage of and she's using me and she never cared about me anyway. So what was I even wasting my time on this marriage for? No. Let's be a champion for love in your marriage. Let's keep loving even when loving is hard. And let's let go of fairness as the metric by which we judge our marriage. And let's press on. Now, again, it's husband help haven. I'm a bit biased when I say that, but all the same. Let's talk about this. Now, how do you actually respond in a way that's going to give you the best chance possible of saving your marriage? Well, this is where I want to just cut in and say, I'm going to give you these answers. You can see we've got like 6 things that we're going to go through right here in this video, but even still, we're only going to be able to scratch the surface. And so I've put together a free download for you that I would highly suggest you go check out. It's called the Separation Roadmap. And so if you want to go that little bit deeper, what this is going to do for you is it's going to show you 4 different stages that most separations go through. It's going to show you what to look for in each one, what reconciliation looks like in each one's, and the mistakes to avoid. And when you sign up, when you subscribe, I send all subscribers a few short lesson series as well, because I really do want you to have a very firm foundation as you are fighting for your marriage. So go check that out if you are interested. You can go to husbandhelphaven.com/map, or you can go to the link in the description below. Now, with that being said, let's just talk through some of the specific stuff that's going to help you respond well to a walkaway wife. And you're going to see that the theme here and what we're doing is with it, we are going to, your goal, your job is to become a husband who stays well. She's walked away. Your job is to get very good at staying. How are we going to do that? Well, first, we're going to understand how she got here. We're going to try to take the right amount of responsibility. So even though her beliefs may be extreme, we're going to try to say which beliefs have some truth to them. And we're going to really think about those. We're going to set our ego aside as we do. And we're going to say, are there any ways that I made conversation punishing in my relationship? Are there any ways that I made working on the marriage feel futile in my relationship? If so, let's gain awareness, humble awareness of those things. Then what I want you to do with that is take that to the next step. This is the hardest step, this second step. Accept the validity of her discontent. This is where you connect what you did, the ways that you may have failed in your marriage that we just got done looking at, and connecting that to how it felt to her in very plain words. It's being able to say very plainly, I messed up, and here's what happened to you because of it, without couching that in anything other than just contrition and humility. Now, you might think, and a lot of guys get stuck on this, they do these first 2 things, and then they say, well, Stephen, she didn't change her mind. She's still in this walk-away wife posture. What's going on? Well, this is where we have step 3. You need to anticipate her entrenchment. Don't take it personally when she moves slow. Don't take it personally when you do the thing, when you get to this place where you can say, okay, I see where she's coming from. I have compassion for her. I'm going to be patient. I'm going to wait through. I'm going to stay well. And despite your best efforts, you might say, now I'm waiting for her to lean back in. No. Don't take it personally when she stays avoidant. An avoidant person staying walled off is the pattern. It shouldn't come as a surprise. And it's also why you shouldn't freak out if you see her actually start to do well on her own. This actually favors you because, again, the whole thing that brings out the avoidant patterns is insecurity. So when she's starting to feel more secure in life, she gets to firmer ground to where she can tackle some of these more vulnerable conversations. So a lot of guys are like, oh, my wife pulled away. She's really cold with me. And it looks like she's doing well. What do I do? Well, you just do well yourself. And then you wait for her to lean into you because it's going to come, and it's probably going to come sooner because she's doing well than if she were doing badly. When she's doing badly, that's when she pulls away. Okay. So again, and that brings us to our next point. Don't be her opposition. If you push her to be wrong, if you spend your efforts and your energies trying to get her to see that being a walkaway wife is the wrong way to leave a relationship, she's just going to dig in even harder. I'm sorry to say. So instead of that, what I want you to do is try to look for areas, carve out areas where you can still align with her on. What are 2 areas? The 2 ones that apply to most men are kids. We want what's best for the kids, and a good future for the other. You and your wife can both say this to each other. I want you to have a good future. Oh, good. I want you to have a good future. Now, we might mean different things. We might have a different vision of what that future is and what would be the best future possible. But we can plant that flag of alignment on, I want a good future for you. Okay, good, me too. And then what we want to do is anytime that we're expressing anything to her, we want to be honest from a place of security, not a need for reciprocity. Don't make your feelings into her shoulds. It's never going to work. So again, what we're looking to do then, once we sort of accept this posture of alignment, is we're going to try to reconnect where reconnection is available. We're going to try to take what's offered, whether that's friendship, whether it's kids, even if it's just logistics, we're going to show up to those logistical conversations with warmth and with zero agenda, and we're going to show her what a secure, loving husband looks like who's talking about divorce logistics. Why does this work? Why is this the approach? Because the thing that we are trying to incite in your wife is a belief that change is possible. It is a low bar that we're trying to move here. It is just that change is possible. That's why we can show that change is possible even when we're doing divorce or separation stuff. Because when you go through that stuff and go about those conversations in a different way than how you handled hard conversations in the marriage, okay, we're proving change is possible. Now, again, maybe I did. I want to be a little careful. It's not so much, I don't want to say prove that change is possible. We want to show that change is possible. So apologize if I misspoke there. Because prove implies that she believes it. Show implies that you demonstrate it. And that is the thing that is on you. Then the other thing that I want you to do is stay patient as she journeys, because you can do all of this perfectly and it might still take weeks. And honestly, I could just scratch that one off the list because it's going to take at least months. Months will be the smallest measuring stick you might use when you are dealing with a walkaway wife. It may even be years. Now, here's what I want you to know, because some of you might think, oh my gosh, Stephen, are you kidding me? Years? The time is not wasted. It's not wasted when it's spent improving yourself. So fix your own life, not your wife. And here's the hardest battle that you're going to face as you do. You're going to have to anchor your identity away from your wife's opinion of you, or away from her willingness to work on the marriage. There is a temptation, even when you get to this place of acceptance, to continue to feel like this ongoing rejection from her is personal. But you are not the villain that she's made you into in her mind. It might not ever stop feeling like rejection. It might not ever stop feeling unfair, but don't let those feelings take the wheel of how you think, how you act, and who you see yourself as. Instead, view perseverance through those feelings as part of the cost of fighting for your marriage solo. Part of the cost of holding out your commitment to your marriage is pushing through those feelings of rejection and unfairness and maintaining resilience as you do. You can't pursue from a place of fear, and you can't make your work into a transaction, so don't let yourself do that. Instead, anchor yourself to the man that you want to be first, and then let her choose that man for herself. Now, before we close, I know the question every guy has is, so Steven, is she ever going to come back? Can you just tell me, I know you've seen lots of situations, you can't give me the exact number, but come on, is it possible for me? Here's what I'll tell you. And again, I don't know you, I don't know your wife, but I can tell you this, I've seen inside a lot of separations. I can't read the future. I can tell you there is a path back. Every door is not closed. What does reconciliation look like when you're dealing with a walkaway wife? Sometimes it's that epiphany moment. She's sort of like, oh, I moved out and I hated it, and suddenly the marriage looks great, so I'm going to do that. We're going to come back now. Most often, though, and what makes the most sense if you just stop and think about it, a wife who left the marriage in an avoidant way probably comes back to the marriage in an avoidant way. So what does that mean? It's going to mean it's going to be slow. It's going to be long stretches of no movement. It means warmth is going to be rebuilt slowly. It's going to mean that you're going to experience 2 steps forward, 1 step back, maybe even 1 step forward, 2 steps back. Conversations might be infrequent. There's going to be a lot of distance that you're going to have to sort of hold your ground through. And yet you might get those really deep conversations just every now and then. And it's going to feel like your wife is moving at a snail's pace, but you just have to trust that internally things are happening that you can't see. Again, this makes sense because avoidant people generally, a lot of their thoughts, a lot of stuff is happening internally before they ever express any of it. So you just have to trust that things are happening and keep doing your part. Stephen here, I just wanted to add one more thing onto this little section, which is that think back to how important independence is for somebody who sort of leans towards this avoidance posture. And again, even if we don't use that word, we can agree independence is very important for your wife right now. And for somebody who cares a lot about independence, the way that they operate when they've decided that they will pay any cost to get that independence is you either meet them in that independence or you won't meet them at all. Or you will be like held at arm's length from that independence. So that is the challenge before you. What does it look like to hold on to love for her, hope for your marriage, and yet enough acceptance of where she's at and how she's feeling that you can, well, and here's the other thing too, with enough confidence still, that's another balance. How can you accept how she feels about the marriage and about you, and yet come from a place of confidence yourself? This is a challenge. It's a bigger question than I can answer in a single YouTube video. But that's the challenge before you. How do you meet her in her independence in a way that shows your own independence in an appealing way? Again, hint, hint, I've given you some directions. Partnership is a great way to try and do that. When you can come alongside her as an independent partner, you may find that there are opportunities to showcase both the growth that you're working in yourself and the connection that's still available in the relationship in ways that would never be available to you if you insisted on trying to break her from that independence first. So I just wanted to elaborate just a little bit on that. I hope that helps. Let's continue. My personal advice for every guy watching this who's trying to save your marriage is if you are still married, if you still bear the label husband, keep trying. Now, granted, here's what I'll grant you, trying can be different for every man. For you, trying may be proactively pursuing connection with her. For other guys, it might be just passively retaining an internal goodwill towards her so that you don't resent her. So that if she ever does come back, you can say, welcome back. I love you. I'm still here for you. Let's make this work. Okay, if that's what trying looks like to you, so be it. So be it. But here's what I want you to understand through all of this is that it's only too late when you decide it's too late. So this is the opposite of what you're going to hear and what I addressed at the very start of the video. I told you that it is still possible to save your marriage. Here I am telling you in a different way, you get to choose how long you stand for your marriage. It's only too late when you decide it's too late. The decision for how long to wait is yours and yours alone. And it's also one of the biggest things that's under your control. So don't let anybody else tell you how long to wait, including me. Make that decision for yourself. You're the one that has to live with it. It's your life, your marriage. What I will tell you is whatever you do, seek outcome independence as you endure with integrity. You have to remember that your wife is very much on her own journey. Quick call out. I'm not going to go into the whole thing right now, but if you've heard me talk about the walkabout analogy, that applies here. Very much that applies here. But here's what I want you to remember is that you get to keep the man that you prove yourself to be through crisis. And there I did use the word prove because you prove it to yourself. Prove it to yourself, the man that you want to be, the man that you can be. Here's my final answer to you. If I had to sum everything up in this video into one statement, my biggest encouragement to you, my simplest encouragement to you, it would be patient, work on yourself, realize that it's more about her than she's telling you. Try to meet her where she's at when you can. The rest of the time, release her to be on her journey. Now, again, if you want the structure to go with that, I made that free resource, the Separation Roadmap. Go check that out. I'll also send you the Separation Dynamics 101 and Reconciliation Dynamics 101 free lessons, along with a couple other series for you. But even if you never do another thing with me, I do hope that this video has helped you make sense of whatever it is that you're living through in your marriage. I hope it's also stood as a counter to some of the other voices out there talking about walkaway wives and how pointless it is to fight for your marriage. No, absolutely not. Don't ever let anybody tell you that. It is not pointless to fight for your marriage. It is a very good and noble thing to care and commit yourself to the task of trying to save your marriage. So thank you so much for being here. As always, it's been Steven. Much manly love, guys, and I will see you on the next one.